Okay, I'd like to go ahead and talk about our Introduction to Ableton assignment. This week we are going to be getting started with Ableton, and just to sort of look over the interface and show you kind of what we're looking at here. It's similar sort of to GarageBand, but it has a whole lot of different features, and everything is still there. It's just in maybe a slightly different orientation. But once you get used to it, it's actually, the workflow is actually really excellent. So if we look over on the left, you'll see the library of instruments and effects, and they have all these different categories, but we'll just sort of remain fixated on a few, select few. These channel strips here, that looks like a mixer. These are your instruments, and you build instruments and loops in these little rectangles here. Notice these rectangles have stop and record buttons in them, so that you can record loops of different lengths. Each channel strip or each instrument has a top row up here where you can select the actual name of the instrument, and if you click on it, down below your view changes to show you the parameters of each instrument. So it's kind of similar to GarageBand, in which when you select your instrument, the settings for that instrument are shown below. This is similar. You can also see that each channel strip or each instrument has an on and off switch, a pan knob, a solo and record button, right? And other things like monitor controls and audio sends and things like that, but we won't really worry about those details. We're just going to be focused on this part down here and what we do up here. These are our transport controls, and these are global transport controls. And then this little guy here, this little record button here is a basically a overdub controller, so that you can overdub loops into your instrument, and I'll demonstrate that in a minute. Over on the top left is our metronome, our tempo, and other instrumental things that guide you around your session. This is sort of a timeline. This is a loop controller here. And then this is our master output on the right with your effects sends over here. And again, we may get to this eventually, but we're not going to worry about that right now. But we will look at this master track eventually, because we're going to keep an eye on this as our summed output. So this is one view of Ableton, and I'm going to go ahead and preview the other side. So if you hit the tab key, you can see the other side of Ableton, which is the arrangement view, where you can see the timeline. On the bottom, you'll see the elapsed time in tiny numbers, unfortunately. On the top, you'll also see measures and beats and bars up here, okay? Automation still is available if you click this button or hit the A key. Again, your channel strips sort of then turn horizontal, and you can then see the same controls over here as you did on the other screen. So in a lot of ways, there's two different views to Ableton, and that makes things a lot easier to work with, but there's just a second little layer of complexity that we're gonna get used to as we work with it. So I want to show you basically what we're doing this week. It's just getting started making loops and organizing our sounds in Ableton to make a 30-second to 1 minute sketch. And then this is just sort of demonstrating what we're able to do in Ableton. So over here I have a beat that I made here, and I have two other instruments. If I solo them, notice that this is my middle track here. I'm gonna have to start it over. If I double stop, it goes back to the beginning. Okay, this is another instrument from the left side here that I'm just sequencing in. And if I double click on it, you can see how it's playing a sample, and I also put a little bit of delay on it. And this is my drum sequence. This is the drum instrument. You can see it's sequencing my drum instruments here. And I've got some reverb on it. So you're going to see too that if you double click on any of these spaces here below the name of the instrument, you'll see what we call a clip record space here. So this is where you can record your sequence. Up here, you can see that the loop length is determined by this drag line here, right? So I've got a 1 measure sequence. So if I solo this track and play it, and similar to our GarageBand looping, right? I can double click and make a sound appear in the grid. Okay, so why don't we start over? I'll save this as an example, and I'll just put this on my desktop. But I think, yeah, there we go. But let's start over from the beginning. So if you go to New Live Set, we are going to start with 2 blank MIDI controlling devices here. These are MIDI instruments, and this is looking for audio files. You can also drop audio files into these instruments, if you will. But we're gonna keep it MIDI for now, and I will suggest that you go up to the Edit window and go down to Record Quantization. That means that as you enter notes with your MIDI keyboard, it will lock them into the tempo grid automatically. So we're going to go to Record Quantization and go to 16th note, and we're gonna engage that so that it's always on our whole session. And so the drums is I think the better drum examples here are in the impulse, the impulse instrument. So you can see that there's already these drum maps already made. So we're going to drag our impulse 808 into our first MIDI channel. Okay. And so that means that if I select this instrument and it's record enabled and I hit middle C, I'm going to get my bass, my kick drum, right? And if I play the white notes on the keyboard, I can basically find all the notes. So once you have an instrument in here, you can double click your clip. You can double click this guy here, and you'll see that a new window appears. A clean sequence opens up down here. And I'm going to establish the length of my loop. This is already set to 1 measure, and I'm going to keep it that way. And I can either double click on the 1 and 3 into the grid, or I can record it in. And when I record it in, I'm not going to use this one. I'm going to use this little circle up here. Okay, this little circle will enable me to loop and overdub my my sequence. I'm going to turn down the tempo because it's too fast. So that didn't work. So once I get it in here, I can edit my sequence. And it's overdubbing my sequence. Okay, so once you have that sequenced, you can go back over here and basically trust that it'll loop that through. Once you make a sequence in your instrument and you're all set with it, you can, it's right here. And so what you can do then is hit this record button and see what happens. So hit this record button and it'll record into your arrangement view. And if you hit the tab key, you'll see that it is going to put it into your timeline for you. It's just going to loop through your sequence. Notice that the zoom function is this thing that your cursor turns into in the timeline. So that's about 20 seconds of my drum beat, okay? This little orange button you have to declick to see it, but there, in this case, you can see that you can continue to loop this out, but once you get it into this loop category, then you can record it into your timeline. Okay, so the other instruments, if you want to create another instrument, let's go to simpler, and let's do this one. I don't really know what it sounds like, but we're just going to listen to it. Ooh. I'm going to lower the volume down here, and I'm just going to play C's. Okay, so let's say I want to do something like that. So if I can double click into my clip, or I can just hit the record button. And if I don't want to hear my drums, I'll solo this, okay? And I can double click this. But notice if I do this, it's not establishing my loop length yet. So that means it's going to just keep on and going. So if I stop, I can go back here and reduce the size of my loop length to be 2 measures. I'm going to zoom back in on this and try it again. So I'm going to go to this little record button, turn on the metronome. And notice how it pops it into the grid. Okay, so I've got this kind of this pattern that's going to go right along with this here. So if I want to record that together, I'll go up here again and record my sequence. Okay, and so we're just adding layer upon layer. And once you get into this arrangement view, you can edit the length of it. Okay, so let's say I want to make my drums drop out for these couple of measures, and I want this to come back. I can copy, paste, and arrange it that way. So if I want this to... Yeah, I didn't do that quite right, but you get the idea. Okay, so let's say I want to add a third instrument. Let's go ahead and over here to, I don't know, operator, and we will do another sound. And if you want to preview it, you can hit this headphone guy here. All right. So if we drag it over here into this empty space, it will create a new instrument for you. So then we go down into our clip. I recommend double clicking it and setting your loop length, right? Let's say I want that to be a 2 measure loop. I go all the way out to 3. So this one's got a different kind of articulation, right? So we can do kind of make something interesting in here. So I'm going to use this again, the small circle up here. Solo this, and I'm going to turn on my metronome. Okay, let me hear what that sounds like with everything else. So this master playback guy, it will control all the clips that you make from right to left. Okay, so that's pretty all right. So if I want to record a whole series of those things happening all at once, I'll hit this global record button, and it'll fill them in on my arrangement side. And I'm hitting tab, remember, to between the two views. Okay, so in that way you can create instruments and then also loop out your sequences. This orange button is going to allow you to see your recording and edit it, right? If I want this to continue without the drums, I can take anything out and delete it. I can hit Command E to split a region and take it out, right? I can do a lot of editing in here. One last thing that we might want to explore, it's not part of the assignment, but you can add effects. So if you go to Audio Effects, you can add effects to the instrument, okay? So let's say I want to put delay on my drums. I'll click the Audio Effects selector, go to Delay, and find something that's fun. Here, I'm just going to find this first option and drag it onto my instrument, okay? When I do, it'll put it into the signal path down here, and you'll see it down here. So if I solo this, play my loop, you can control the amount of dry-wet mix down here. And if I want to hear how it plays with everything else, I can add some reverb to my other sounds here by finding the reverb audio effect. Let's say I go down to this one and select Cathedral for some of these other sounds. So let's say I do that, and it's totally wet, so we're gonna bring that down too. And let's solo that and hear what that sounds like. Gives it a little bit of ambiance, right? So for this assignment, you're basically creating a drum sequence and two other layers that are loops, and you're then recording them into the timeline with the global record function. We will also go over this in class, but I figured this would be a good resource for finding out how to do this on your own. And if you have any questions, you can always contact me. This may be a little bit of a departure from GarageBand, but it's definitely worth the trouble. This is a really great program. It's very flexible. It's great for making arrangements of performances. And you'll see as we go, the more that we work with it, the more you can do. Great, well, have fun and contact me with any questions. Thank you.